but I spent a lot of time putting positive thoughts into my brain, and my brain was rewired after I had gone through a breakdown. Because back then I couldn't think for myself. I couldn't do anything. I could barely work for more than like 10 hours in a week. And I was a strong woman before that.
Wow. This hit differently.
That is when I knew that this was the Lord.
That's a good question.
I figure if I do it, it'll force me to learn it.
Well, that's why I know him.
The Scene with Sean Wlliam, Behind the Book. Featuring today's book.
Folks, thank you so much once again for stepping into the scene with me, Sean Wlliam. And today on the show, we have a truly inspiring and motivational author. The book we're talking about today is To Touch One Heart. It talks about struggles, trauma, and overcoming all of these experiences throughout a life that's been lived. And today on the show, please, ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome none other than Miss Pamela Benner. Welcome to the show, Miss Pamela.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. And Miss Pamela, like I mentioned, this book of yours, memoir, truly vulnerable, truly just, nitty gritty. You didn't shy away from touching and going to that place, right? But
right, exactly.
Before we actually go and dive deep into the content of the book, though, I want to talk about your inspirations, the creative journey, the writing process, because I'm pretty sure this wasn't the easiest book to make or write. What was the inspiration, or what was it like in your mind when you thought to yourself, or finally thought to yourself, okay, I'm going to put pen to paper. I'm going to write a book about this. Why? How did that come to be?
Pretty much it was a decision I had thought about for a long time. And it took me about 10 years to actually commit to it.
Wow.
Because it's one thing to think about it and actually, write things and so forth. You can get distracted very easily with life. So once I made the commitment to write it, then that's when it actually began.
Right. And you said it took you 10 years. My goodness.
Yeah, before I decided. Yeah.
Right.
And, I knew what was involved as far as revisiting those places in my life and actually knowing that I would have to go through some, emotional things. And, it's one thing to think about it, but it's really another thing to actually write about it and put it on paper.
Yeah.
Because you're constantly writing, at least I did. I constantly wrote. And sometimes I wrote it more than once in the book, or just went with whatever my feelings were at the time and what the subject was. So it was very much off the cuff. There was no real blueprint to it all. It was just getting it down on the paper and feeling it and living it again, so to speak, and healing from it.
Right. And I'm pretty sure that this, like you said, wasn't the most easy, because I myself, I sort of cope in that same sense. If I go through something, I feel like I get better if I start to write it down on paper, right? I journal and everything.
Yes.
Was that the same way for you? Is that how it all started? Because obviously, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it was more of a journaling kind of thing, because I had journaled years ago, and although that helped me quite a bit through my struggles, this was a little bit different because it was at a starting point of my life to the passing of my parents.
Right.
So it was kind of a long stretch of, until now. So basically, it wasn't really the same as journaling, because I had to do it like every day.
Right.
And I had to do it until I actually got what I needed onto the paper and actually deal with it and feel it. And a lot of times I cried through it.
Wow.
A lot of times my emotions were that raw and that real. Just thinking back on those years and what I had experienced and the struggles I felt, and just making my peace with it
Right.
along the way. I don't think you normally do that as much when you're journaling, because it's just that moment that you're writing it, and then it's like a fleeting moment.
Yeah.
So you never really get into the real depth of yourself. This made me get into the depth of myself, to where it all was within me, because that was the healing, the inner healing that I needed. It wasn't something that I just wanted to put a Band-Aid on and feel good for just a moment, and then, go on my merry way. This was something that I had committed to do for myself, and that I wanted to get past it all. I didn't want it to be something that I continued to visit or think about, because my mind worked like that. I was very obsessive about certain things, and I would just draw myself back to that. And through the years, I suffered a lot with depression and oppression and low self-esteem. So if you don't let go of those things and allow it to heal within yourself, you just continue to feed it, and it doesn't go away.
Yeah.
It's just a moment of feeling okay, and tomorrow will be better, because I kind of went through that process of thinking, well, tomorrow will get better, and tomorrow really didn't get better until I decided to really go deep within myself and address those things that really hurt me. Because it's amazing how the hurts are there, and once you address it, it just completely disappears. It just goes. It's not there anymore. It's not hurting anymore. There's no more sadness about it. There's no more confusion about it.
Right.
It just kind of dissolves on its own. And that's what I try to tell people, because I see too many people that are constantly living in this turmoil of their life. And I lived that. I lived the turmoil and the depression and all the negativity. And it's not productive. You just go around in a circle, and you never get out of that loop, so to speak. You just continue. And that was really my reason to making that commitment, because I knew that it wasn't going to be an easy thing. It wasn't going to be just, writing words on the paper. Things weren't really that realistic to me. A lot of times my mind would go off in a big direction, and I would be caught up in it.
Wow.
I'd be caught up with all my emotions, and then you kind of act them out. We do that. So
I can totally relate with everything you're saying. I'm pretty sure it's a common thing these days too, especially with the younger generation. Statistically
Yes, for
speaking,
sure.
these kids growing up are more depressed for whatever reason, right? And your point earlier on in terms of getting closure is super important, because you mentioned something that's super, super vital. Yeah, journaling is good, but yes, it's pretty cool. It's pretty true. You said it's just a fleeting moment. Until you can finally get that closure is when you actually start to heal. And that's something that people don't really realize, right? But, I think you did this, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think you did this with an even more noble purpose, Miss Pamela, because,
yes.
taking into account, you wanted to heal yourself, you wanted to get through the things yourself, but I think one thing you also have to take into account is, I think you did this because you also wanted to help other people. And correct me if I'm wrong. Was this a big part of why you decided to write the book?
Yes, it was primarily for my family, because it was a generational thing. As I wrote the book, I was making the connections like dot to dot, and how my life actually was the way it was, and I'm not saying, that's an excuse for anything, but it was just very insightful to see how the dots continued to connect from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. And my grandsons were really my true motivation to write this, because I wanted to get beyond the generational things in my life, and I didn't want them to be passed down to them. And I was given that promise that if I did write the book, that's exactly what I was going to be doing. And I could share that with other people as well, that they didn't have to live in that state of mind, because it's really just a mindset. And for me, I had to continue to renew my mind all the time. I did that for myself, because I had to change the negativity into positivity.
Awesome.
And that in itself is hard to do, but you have to be determined. You have to be committed to yourself, to your own well-being. You can't depend on somebody else to do it for you. And that's what I learned through all of this. I had to do my own praying. I had to do my own meditations. I had to invest in myself. And that's really what the book meant to me. It was more of an investment for me and an investment for my family.
Awesome.
Whether they chose to take that journey themselves, that was entirely their commitment to them. But I just wanted my grandsons to not have to go through any of this stuff prior to, living, during that generational line that I speak of in the book. And the most important part was the last 20 years I lived with my parents while I was actually healing. I was actually sent back to my parents after 20 years, and I didn't really want to go there. But, sometimes we do things and we don't understand why we do them. And that was the door that opened for me to actually begin to heal.
Right.
And to see the generational lines and to put the dots together and then to want to write the book.
Right.
So, in reality, it did take me quite a while. And I'm very glad that I did, because I was also given a promise that if I wrote the book, that God would heal my life, because those were all of the footprints throughout my life up until now that he was healing.
Right.
And I couldn't really do that on my own, so to speak. It was the grace of God that led me and guided me and instructed me and gave me the words to write. And it was really a whole realm of things that contributed to the book, even in the expression of the book.
Right. No, that's truly amazing that you give all the praise to God, right? Because you said it a little bit earlier, you actually decided to get better, just to, in layman's terms, I just heavily paraphrase what you said. And yes, it's tough. It's tough. I can truly relate. Like I said earlier, I think everyone's gone through a phase of depression, right? And it's tough because you get a mixed bag of emotions of you wanting to be alone because you don't want to burden other people. And at the same time, you also want people to help you out, but you also realize that there's no one else that can help you out but yourself.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That's something that I think this younger generation needs to learn, is that, there are a lot of people out there that can help them, because, now these kids growing up have no idea what life was like, or what life is like without social media, right? So they grew up having a spotlight on them, and that leads to easier times getting depressed. That's why in other countries, in Japan, as an example, they have a really high rate of, unaliving themselves. I'm just going to use that term. Also in South Korea, here in the Philippines, in my city, just last week, someone did it. But I'm truly grateful. This is why my team and I are very passionate about your book, because it does serve a purpose. Now, that being said, you mentioned your book was solely for the purpose of for your family and most especially your grandkids. But at the end of the day, Miss Pamela, if you were to think about it, what's your ultimate goal for the book in the literary landscape, or if not, the global scheme? What do you hope to achieve at the end of the day, and when you're finally able to sit back and relax and say, okay, I did my part, I did a good job? When is that point?
Well, I'm looking forward to this book, and I do have two other books that I'm in the process of writing, which is a continuation of this
Mm-hmm.
book. And my outlook towards it all is to see these books go around the world and to touch hearts. That's why I called the first book To Touch One Heart, and to get it into many languages as possible.
Awesome.
For all people to be able to share it, whomever it's for. I don't really know exactly how that's all going to come together and be worked out that way, but
Yeah.
that's where I continue to write the remainder of the story, because it's in 3 books.
Right.
And but that's my goal, is to see that fulfilled, to see the promise and the vision for this book to be fulfilled, and that's to go around the world,
Right.
and to touch one heart. Even if it's, I always said very many years ago, if there was only one word on a page that would actually inspire somebody or keep them from committing suicide or doing something horrible, then I've done my job.
Awesome.
If it's just one word on a page that will change somebody's life, then as far as I'm concerned, I've completed my mission.
Right. That's like I said earlier, I think, and I was correct, this is such a noble purpose. It's such a good cause. And, correct me if I'm wrong, that is such a Christian thing to do. I myself, we started this podcast with the hopes to save one soul, through our author's content. So I truly resonate with your purpose there. I got to ask you though, because you divided your book into 3 parts. Now, this book focuses on this part of your life. What are we looking forward to in the next one?
Yeah, it focuses on my birth to my parents passing.
Right. And for the second and third ones, what are we?
And for the second one, it's more of a beginning of my new life, so to speak. After all of what has happened to me, so it's kind of step 1 to the new life that I've been granted in terms of doing this.
Awesome.
And I use different examples of what I still went through in this time period. I was led back to a church that I had attended 20 years prior.
Wow.
When I first started to really start writing, I had actually written a 12-book series.
Wow.
While living with my parents.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what healed me. My books healed me. And then once they passed, I put everything on a shelf and I said, I am done. I wrote the books, got them printed, and I gave them all out over a 8-year period.
Right.
So I was done at that point. And somewhere along the line, I was led back to this same church. Mm-hmm. And that is where I spent 3 years attending the church, but I also spent every Sunday at a bookstore, and that is where I wrote these books.
Wow. Okay.
And that's how I spent my time. So I do incorporate that particular part of it in my book and what had happened during those 3 years, which were, again, part of all of the writings that I had done from the beginning to the present moment.
Right. I have to ask you, and I'm sorry to interrupt, because everything, book 1, we have yet to see book 2, but book 1, very movie-esque, right? Are you at all entertaining the idea or the possibility of it turning, into a film or a series, possibly?
Yes. That was one of the promises I was giving many years ago. I had attended a book show
Mm-hmm.
because back when I had done all those series, I was trying to fulfill the vision for myself, actually. And I had gone through a lot of disappointing moments, which are also in the book.
Mm-hmm.
But I was promised that one day I would write a bestseller and that it would become a movie.
Awesome.
So as far as I'm concerned, the book one is my bestseller. I'm not saying the others won't be, but
Yeah.
my focus was only on one book originally.
Yeah.
And when I started writing the one book, then it came to two books. And then when two books, actually I wrote the first and the second book together, and then I had to put them together. I had to take out from one book and put it in the other book, and
Mm-hmm.
and back and forth until I got two books.
Right.
So
Wow.
yeah, but that was a dream, and that was something that was promised me way back before I even came to Florida, and I've been in Florida for 25 years.
Right. Wow. Now,
So,
going and focusing now a little bit more about To Touch One Heart. For the folks at home who only know what, a brief overview or a brief snippet of the whole topic, right? But give the folks, the viewers, the listeners at home an overview, a quick overview. Don't give it all away, but a quick overview of To Touch One Heart.
Well, I start from the time I was born and the things that my mother told me, because as a child, we just listen to what our parents tell us, and we believe what they tell us, and we trust that. So I go about talking about when I was from 5 years old, and how my mom was a very religious person, and she had a very obsessive relationship with the Virgin Mary. And this was what I was raised on, and how that all impacted my life in terms of church and my faith and things that I was, seeking for myself, and what I really deemed, even as a child, which was what was true and what wasn't true.
Right.
And not everything that was true was agreeable with my mother. So it did make things kind of rough for me. And she believed in a lot of doctors, because I had a lot of medical things growing up. And, my mom, I didn't know that until I revisited her, before her passing, that she was very insecure. And so a lot of those things were dots. They just came back around, and then it was that, like you say, it was that closure of things. But also in the book, I talk about how all that had affected me, and how I was, on this journey to search the truth, and how I had to go through difficult things, even with the churches and the people that I was with during those years. I had gotten off track and had done things that I wasn't very much proud of. And but by the grace of God, I got through that, and that's why I have a testimony. So I do share some inappropriate things, because that's what happened to me. I mean, I went through molestation. I went through a lot of sexual abuse.
Right.
I went through a divorce. I went through the years I was separated from my children for 5 years, because I was considered, mentally
unfit,
bipolar, or whatever they want to put a label on. Because most of my life I was labeled from the time I was a child, because I was blind in one eye. And from then it just kind of ran through my whole life as one label after the other. And then after my divorce is when I had a breakdown, so to speak. I had a business, and I was promised, if I laid everything down, that eventually I would have a book ministry that would help people. But at that time, I didn't even really know the Lord. I didn't know anything, concrete or foundational. I had never. My mother told me if I ever read the Bible that, it would be terrible. I would be totally mental.
My goodness.
So I kind of stayed away from that.
Right.
And I can't say I have read the Bible all the way through, but I do meditate upon scriptures.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what carried me through the last 30 years.
Awesome.
And then when I came back to my parents, that's when I had to face myself. That's when I had to get down to the nitty gritty and actually have conversations with my mother and have conversations about certain things. And that's what led me to write the story, because my mom, even the fact that she may have had different religious beliefs or was very staunched on certain things, I still had to kind of come around to myself and stop being angry for it, and not wanting to actually see it as something that could be good now, instead of, all the things that I had gone through, that I could actually help somebody through it if I wrote it.
Right.
So that's how it all kind of unravels for me. But I also speak about this book as being a woven cloth, that God is the master weaver of my life, and how he is able to put all those pieces back together again and make something beautiful. Right. And that is truly the testimony that I want to express to people, and actually be an inspiration to them, that they can be better than what they were. Right. Because this is the original me. There is nothing more and nothing less than who I am today. I am not looking to be anything, or, you know what I mean? I just want to help people.
Yeah. It's beautiful that you actually know these things, and you've decided, because let's face it, Miss Pamela, your life has been a series of you deciding to be better, and
right.
That's the biggest difference between you and someone who decides to go down a dark path, right? That's the only difference, because they may have God too, right? They like you and I, we have God in our lives, but your free will and your power to choose to become better is what made you who you are today. And that's a good thing. That's an amazing thing. What would you say, or what piece of advice would you give someone who just chooses to go down that spiral, because I truly believe with your amount of experience and what you've been through, you can actually help someone. What would you say to that person who's going through those negativities right now? What's your biggest advice?
I would tell them never to quit, never give up, because I've seen the grace of God to the extent where you can hit rock bottom many times, and by the grace of God, you can't get away from it. You can't get away from the purpose that God has for your life. You can run only so far, and eventually you're going to have to deal with you. Because that's how it works for me. I went through a lot of years not even knowing this, and I still never quit. I had every reason to just throw in the towel many, many, many times. And I was just determined to do it and determined to see it through. And I didn't even know what I was seeing through until it was done. Mm-hmm. It wasn't like, well, I had a goal, or I had something that was substantial to adhere to and to follow, but I didn't even have that. It was just a desire and a determination, and there was just something in me that I was a fighter from probably day one, and never realized it. So through all of this, I came to know myself. Mm-hmm. And I think that is really the whole ball of wax, is that people don't know who they are. Right. They just let life define them and say, well, this is the best it's going to be, whatever their mindset may be, but they don't know who they are. And it's not until you decide to do something like this that you actually realize who you are and you like yourself. I learned to love myself through this writing. I learned to appreciate myself and honor myself. And I don't let people disrespect me. They may try to, or they may go that way and thinking they can. And look, I'm not going to be disrespectful to them, but I am going to let the whole thing play out, and I will rise above it in the end.
Awesome.
I
think all of that.
So I don't take any of these matters into
Right.
my hands anymore. I used to do that, and that's what hurt me the most.
Right.
So I just be me, and you either like me or you don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
I like me.
Yeah.
And I know what I have to offer people, and if I can just do it one person at a time, that's the way I want to go.
Right.
Because I am a one-on-one person. A lot of people don't realize that. They think, I should be a part of this big group. Well, I'm not a group person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a one-on-one. Just like with you, I can tell you my heart and talk to you probably for 5 hours straight.
Yep.
Because it's a one-on-one thing.
Yeah.
But the minute you put me in a crowd of people, I kind of want to disappear.
Right.
I want to be like the wallflower.
I
and
hear
just
you.
go back where it's safe.
I'm like that too.
So I am just learning through all of this that I can even express myself, because the book has given me a voice that I didn't have before. I never really had a voice growing up, didn't have a voice in a lot of my relationships. I just kind of settled with everybody else and did what they wanted. And I may do that somewhat even today, but not without recognizing it. It's one thing when you don't recognize it, and it's another thing when you recognize it and you still say that's okay.
Right.
Because I'm in a relationship with that person. But I'm just more aware too. It's brought me great awareness.
Awesome.
Along with the healing.
Miss Pamela, your book has a plethora of lessons throughout all your experiences, throughout your lifetime. But I think I wanna end the show with a bang with this question. Throughout your lifetime of experiences, what has been the most transformative experience that you've gone through? What lesson did you take away from that? And what would you say or give to the people at home in relation to that transformative point in your life?
Well, I think the transformative part in my life is having a renewed mindset. I mean, that was what I truly spent a lot of my time doing through the years of all of my hurt and my pain, and through the writing of the book series that was before this. But I spent a lot of time putting positive thoughts into my brain, and my brain was rewired after I had gone through a breakdown. Because back then I couldn't think for myself. I couldn't do anything. I could barely work for more than like 10 hours in a week. And I was a strong woman before that. I would say that was probably the most transformation that I had experienced, because it drew me to where I am today. It was by the power of the Spirit. And that was the transforming part of it all, that I was able to come out of those things, because I couldn't have done it on my own.
Right.
And, I could have done something maybe, but it wouldn't have really been very fruitful for me. In the end, I would have eventually went back to it. And it's just a different mindset when you have more of a positive mindset, because all of the negativity is not there anymore.
Right.
There isn't those thoughts that creep in and take hold of me and cause me to go down a dark road.
Right.
There just aren't any thoughts in reality. It's just moving forward. It's like that moving forward kind of the thing, where you're not thinking of the past anymore. You're not taking account of the past. You're just going to reach the things that you want to do from this point on. That's why I say, the vision to me is a large vision, and I'm just taking small steps to get there, one step at a time.
Wow.
Where before, when you're depressed, you don't think about steps, or, you just think about, well, how am I going to solve this, and how am I going to feel better? And, whatever I did, never really solved it.
Right. No, that's truly amazing, because with the power of, I know it sounds simple, but it's not really that simple. Power of a positive mindset. knowing your self-worth. You know, these things sound simple, but people have no idea how much of a battle it is internally for us to actually get to that point, right? And
Yeah.
and I want to, tell the folks at home where they can purchase a copy of To Touch One Heart, Miss Pamela.
Okay, well, they can go on Amazon and they can go to Barnes and Noble and they can do my website, which is pamela.benner.com. And I'm sure in the future there will be many other platforms and ways in which they can reach the book and get the book. I'm working right now with a literary agent that will hopefully get it into an actual publishing company. Right now, this is pretty much a self-publishing thing, and it's just in Barnes and Noble. But I'm looking to spread my wings into a larger group of people. And
Awesome.
like you said, to eventually get it into the movie aspect of things. So I am just taking every step that I know to take, like I've done all through the years, and continue to go forward and let the pieces come together as they will. And to know, because I have the joy, I have the peace, and I have the love for people. And I know that the Spirit's going to open the doors for me. I have that confidence now. I didn't have that back then.
Good.
I didn't even have the vision, really. I just agreed to write the book. So I'm just excited about that. I really feel empowered right now, even as I'm speaking to you, that everything's going to come together exactly the way it's supposed to.
Right. And, book 2 is coming out. When are we expecting the release?
Well, that will be depending on the time frame, whether I do another. Right now, I'm really not looking to do another self-publishing. I'm waiting to see what these literary agents are going to direct me in. And
Smart.
Hopefully, they'll take all 3 books.
Right. No, that's a good...
Take it from there.
Yeah,
and that's really my heart's desire at this point.
Very smart.
But it's very early in the game right now. I'm just writing right now.
Awesome.
I'm writing the 3rd book right now, and that's keeping me motivated and engaged.
Good.
And, along the path that I need to be.
No, and we just want to say thank you, Miss Pamela, for taking the time to hop onto the show and to share such a powerful message. And for the folks at home, please grab a copy of Miss Pamela's book, To Touch One Heart. It cannot only literally save your life, but it can make an even slightly bad day a lot better. So please, folks, we want to say thank you once again to Miss Pamela. Thank you so much, Miss Pamela, for joining the show. Yeah. And folks at home, we'll see you in the next scene. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.